The cycle of abuse is a well-documented concept that describes a recurring pattern of violent behavior, often observed in familial or intimate relationships. It typically consists of three main phases: tension building, an abusive incident, and a honeymoon phase where the abuser may exhibit remorse or seek forgiveness. This cycle is crucial to understanding why some fathers, who may have been victims of abuse themselves, become aggressors. The intergenerational transmission of violence suggests that children who witness or experience abuse are more likely to replicate these behaviors in adulthood, perpetuating a vicious cycle. Understanding the cycle of abuse is essential in the discussion of why some fathers turn into aggressors. It provides a framework for recognizing how past experiences and learned behaviors can shape an individual's actions, potentially leading to the perpetuation of violence across generations. Recognizing the cycle can also aid in breaking it, offering opportunities for intervention and change. For example, a man who grew up in a household where domestic violence was prevalent may unknowingly internalize these actions as normal, later exhibiting similar behaviors in his relationships. Programs that focus on breaking this cycle, such as anger management or therapy for domestic violence survivors, can be transformative. Another example is the impact of advocacy and education, which can equip individuals with non-violent conflict resolution skills, aiming to disrupt learned aggressive patterns. Psychologists and social workers often support the idea that early intervention and education can prevent the perpetuation of this cycle. By providing resources and support to at-risk families, society can mitigate the long-lasting effects of abuse. However, some challenges and controversies surround this concept. Critics argue that focusing solely on historical abuse as a cause risks oversimplifying a complex issue that can also stem from factors like substance abuse, mental health issues, or socioeconomic stressors. Others may contend that not all individuals who experience violence become aggressors, suggesting a need for more nuanced understanding. The cycle of abuse influences other aspects of the main topic by highlighting the necessity for comprehensive support systems that address the root causes and provide coping mechanisms for those affected. It underscores the importance of a systematic approach that involves families, communities, and policymakers working together to break the cycle, ultimately fostering healthier familial relationships and communities. Understanding this cycle allows for a more empathetic approach to addressing why some fathers might become aggressors, emphasizing rehabilitation and prevention rather than mere condemnation. The notion of the cycle of abuse, why some fathers turn into aggressors, revolves around the perpetuating pattern of abusive behavior passed down through generations, where individuals who experience or witness abuse, particularly during formative years, may replicate similar patterns in their own behaviors later in life. This cycle is often fueled by a combination of learned behavior, unresolved trauma, and sociocultural factors, creating a complex environment where past victimization can manifest as future aggression. Understanding this cycle is pivotal because it sheds light on the underlying causes of abusive behavior and can help in formulating strategies for prevention and intervention. By acknowledging that some fathers may turn into aggressors due to learned behaviors and unresolved childhood traumas, experts and practitioners can approach solutions with empathy and a comprehensive understanding of domestic violence's root causes. For example, studies have shown that men who witness domestic violence as children are significantly more likely to become perpetrators themselves. Consider a man who grows up in a household where his father routinely abuses his mother. As he matures, he may subconsciously adopt aggressive behaviors, mistakenly viewing them as normal or effective means of conflict resolution. Another real-world scenario involves military veterans who, having been exposed to violence and stress in combat, may struggle with reintegrating into family life, potentially exhibiting aggressive behaviors influenced by their past experiences. Support for this concept is prevalent among psychologists and social workers who emphasize the importance of early intervention and trauma-informed care in breaking the cycle of violence. They argue that through therapeutic approaches and community support systems, individuals can learn healthier behaviors and coping mechanisms, potentially altering the trajectories set by prior experiences. However, the cycle of abuse concept is not without its controversies. Some critics argue that labeling individuals as products of their environment could inadvertently absolve them of responsibility for their actions. Moreover, it's essential to consider that not everyone who experiences abuse in their youth becomes an aggressor. Many actively choose to break the cycle. This highlights the need for individualized approaches when addressing abusive behaviors. The cycle of abuse concept ties into broader discussions on domestic violence, mental health, and societal change. By acknowledging how ingrained patterns of behavior can manifest and persist, stakeholders can better address the multifaceted nature of abuse, crafting interventions that not only support victims but also rehabilitate aggressors, ultimately aiming to disrupt and end cycles of violence. Understanding the factors leading to aggression is crucial for unraveling the complexities behind the cycle of abuse, particularly why some fathers may turn into aggressors. At its core, aggression can be defined as a range of behaviors that are intended to harm someone physically or emotionally. This concept is deeply significant within the context of the cycle of abuse, as it helps explain how certain abusive patterns are perpetuated across generations. For many individuals, particularly fathers who may have been victims of abuse themselves, this aggressive behavior is often not an innate trait, but a response conditioned by past experiences and environmental factors. The importance of understanding these factors cannot be overstated, as it allows for a more empathetic and informed approach to breaking the cycle. For instance, one significant factor is the impact of witnessing or experiencing violence during childhood. Studies have shown that children exposed to familial violence have a higher likelihood of imitating similar behaviors in adulthood, thereby perpetuating the cycle of abuse. Another example is societal norms regarding masculinity. In many cultures, men are conditioned to suppress emotions and exert dominance, which can manifest as aggression towards family members when compounded with stress or frustration. Experts such as child psychologist Dr. James Garbarino have emphasized the role of early childhood experiences in shaping future behaviors, advocating for early intervention and the importance of healthy emotional development in children. However, addressing these factors is not without its challenges. One major controversy is the notion of assigning blame. While understanding the roots of aggression is essential, it is crucial not to excuse abusive behaviors. There is also the challenge of ingrained cultural attitudes that may resist change, making it difficult to implement preventative measures effectively. Alternative viewpoints may argue that aggression is more a matter of personal choice or moral deficit than a product of external influences. However, a comprehensive approach recognizes that while personal responsibility is important, addressing environmental and psychological factors can lead to more effective prevention and rehabilitation strategies. This understanding of aggression and its roots connects deeply with other aspects of the cycle of abuse by highlighting the importance of breaking the cycle through both prevention and intervention. By acknowledging and addressing the factors leading to aggression, society can foster environments that discourage violence and support healthier relationship dynamics, ultimately seeking to end the cycle of abuse. Understanding why some fathers transition into aggressors within the cycle of abuse involves recognizing complex psychological and sociocultural dynamics. The cycle of abuse describes a pattern where abusive behavior is cyclically perpetuated, often across generations. Here, fathers who become aggressors may have themselves been victims of abuse, witnessed domestic violence, or been conditioned by environments that normalize aggression as a method of asserting control. This point is significant to the broader topic as it underscores the perpetuating nature of abuse within familial structures. By examining why fathers, often seen as protectors, turn into aggressors, we can gain insights into preventive measures and intervention strategies. Recognizing these patterns is crucial in breaking the cycle and fostering healthier family dynamics. Two illustrative examples come to mind. Firstly, consider the grim narrative, often reported in studies where men with histories of childhood abuse are more predisposed to exhibit abusive behaviors towards their own families. This scenario highlights a tragic repetition of learned behaviors, where past victims become perpetrators, thus sustaining the cycle. Secondly, cultural pressures on men to be authoritative or emotionally stoic can exacerbate aggression when these societal expectations are unmet, culminating in abusive tendencies as a misguided assertion of dominance. Supportive opinions argue that early intervention, such as counseling and educational programs for young men, can change this trajectory. Moreover, promoting mental health awareness and emotional intelligence from a young age could mitigate these development patterns. Psychologists and social workers emphasize the importance of breaking stigmas around mental health care in preventing the transference of abusive behaviors across generations. However, there are several challenges and controversial viewpoints in addressing this concept. Some argue that focusing on the perpetrator's history might inadvertently justify or excuse abusive behavior. There are also diverse opinions on the primary influences of such aggression, whether they stem predominantly from environmental, psychological, or genetic factors. Additionally, cultural differences add layers of complexity, with varying definitions and thresholds of what constitutes aggressive behavior. This aspect of the cycle of abuse is deeply interconnected with broader themes, such as societal norms around masculinity and the systemic structures that either perpetuate or mitigate violence. In addressing why some fathers become aggressors, we are prompted to consider broader social narratives and structural reforms that emphasize prevention, rehabilitation, and education, ultimately aiming to dismantle the cycle of abuse within families and communities.